Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm here in a very natural setting. I'm not sat in my usual background. It's quite late in the evening, I'm looking a bit rough. But I've just asked you guys over on Twitter and Instagram for questions for a boy talk video, because when I did a little bit of a girly chat in one of my drive with me's, a lot of you guys asked for a boy version, and I thought, you know what, I've seen quite a lot of these floating around on YouTube and I want to give it a go. So I've got my cup of tea. Oh, which is now covered in lipstick, lovely. Don't even know why, because I'm not like spilling any tea. I don't have any tea to spill. No shade, just facts. But yeah, I'm here today to answer some of your guys' questions about boys, about relationships, about friendships, various different things. Most of them are anonymous, so for the sake of the Q&A, I'm not going to put any on-screen like tweets or anything, just in case you guys wanted to keep it secret. So without further ado, I'm just going to get straight into it. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can, so I'm going to do them kind of quick fire. I'm going to give you some advice that is maybe from my own experience or just from like life knowledge. These are in no particular order, I'm just going off the first one that I screenshotted, and that was, I was wondering if you had any advice on how to deal with your ex-boyfriend moving on to somebody else. Thanks a lot, I love your channel. Thank you so much. This is not something I really have personal experience with, as whenever I've been with somebody and broken up with them, I've always like been totally okay if they wanted to move on. I've never been like upset about a breakup because I have never been broken up with. It's either been amicable or I've done it, which is like bad. And I'm talking for like year 8, year 9 relationships as well, because obviously you guys know I'm in a relationship with my boyfriend Tom, and we've been together for quite a while. But before that, I've never really been in this exact situation, but I think it's probably one of the hardest things to see, especially if you're still kind of like in love with that person. It's gonna be really difficult. I think one of the best things that you can do is just try and move on yourself. I don't mean like look for somebody else and like try and get with like the first boy that you see or whatever, but try to like go out with your friends, make the most of the free time that you have, so that you're not like sat dwelling on like the past or whatever. Make sure that you keep doing things in the present until eventually you realize that it's not bothering you as much anymore. I feel like that is kind of difficult to hear, but I think that that is probably what you have to do, and it's difficult because I don't like have any of my own personal experience with this, but it is one of the hardest things in life probably. So yeah, it's just, you've got to stick at it and make sure you have a really good support network around you. Okay, so the next one was, what should I do because my friendship group me and my boyfriend are in are rejecting me and making me feel unwanted. I don't want him to be in the middle, but I've recently moved sixth forms and it makes me not want to go into school. Okay, that sucks. The people that he is friends with are clearly not that kind, and I do think it's one of the most difficult things when one of your friends gets into a relationship and you then have to become accepting of like their other half or whatever. I think that is one of the most difficult things. I definitely noticed it starting sixth form. For the first time, a lot of people were like getting into relationships, and the people that weren't in relationships found it and find it kind of difficult to adapt to the fact that their best friend is now in a relationship. I can speak from personal experience, but also just from like the way life works. I think it's a combination of like sadness that they're kind of like losing their close friends or whatever, or jealousy, which is really unfortunate because I hate that people can be so nasty because they're jealous of what you have. I think that that is the root of most problems, and it's horrible. But I think if your boyfriend is like in a friendship group and they're struggling to accept that he has a girlfriend, I think you either need to talk to them, be the bigger person, be like, hey look, I'm not taking your friend away from you, I really want to get on with you all, and this doesn't change him. Or your boyfriend needs to like get better friends if they're being really like horrible. It's difficult, it's such difficult like time if you're in sixth form, because you have to see everybody all the time, and even if you don't want to see them and be reminded of it, it's constantly there and it's so difficult to deal with. But I think you need to talk to them, and from personal experience it kind of gets better with time because you work out who your real friends are, because your real friends do not ditch you when you have a boyfriend. So the next one is definitely something I have experience with, and that was tips on how to stay in touch with guys when you go to an all-girls high school. Okay, so if you didn't know, I went to an all-girls school. It was an interesting experience, I'm not gonna lie to you. Obviously I didn't know any different. To me it was kind of normal, and the way it works in my town is there's an all girls school and there is an all boys school, and because of that, the fact that there is an all boys school meant that we were kind of linked with them. So people always knew boys from that school and the boys always knew girls from my school and vice versa. And I think the introduction of social media booming when I started in year 7, so I started in high school in 2011, so that was at the height of like Facebook becoming massive, MSN was kind of still a thing sort of, and Twitter was just becoming like a thing. And then when I was in year 8 or 9, Snapchat was invented, and that kind of changed the whole game. Use social media to your advantage, but also do not let that mean that you don't see them in person, because I feel like so often the difficulty of going to an all-girls school is it's so easy to talk to people on Instagram or on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but then it's like the next step from that becomes awkward, because whenever you meet a guy or whenever you go out with a boy, it becomes a thing because you're at an all-girls school. It's like, oh my god, they met a guy. If you go to a mixed school, that is just normal. If you're hanging out with boys on the weekend, like that wouldn't be like a big deal. So yeah, use social media, but make sure to meet in real life as well, because it just gets awkward when you go to sixth form, to be honest. Okay, so the next one was, what is your tips for going on a first ever date? I'm really nervous for mine coming up. Okay, I mean, I think I went on my first date when I was in, oh god, I don't even know, like year 9, but I don't even know if you would count it as a date. But I feel like first dates, regardless of how old you are, they're always coming with like an air of awkwardness. Like it's never going to be like really smooth unless you already know the person, especially if you're meeting and you've never really like spoken face to face. It's always painful. Make sure that you have conversation starters before you go. Like, this sounds really sad, but if I remember whenever I would go for like coffee with somebody or go to the cinema is not a good first date, right? Okay, in my opinion, that is one of the worst first dates, because then it means that you're sat next to somebody for 2 hours or more and you're not talking, but you're kind of sitting there, but it's like not the comfortable silence. It's like, this is an awkward silence because we can't talk, there is a film on. The only good thing about going to the cinema is that afterwards you have like a generic conversation because you can talk about the film, but I don't think that's a good first date. Like, in my opinion, cinema for a first date is like a miss. Like, do that third or fourth date. First date, I always used to like go to town or go for like a coffee or like something like that, and I think if you have a list of conversation starters, that really helps you out. And if they're really quick to shut the conversation down, that's usually an indicator as to like how good the date is going, because if they're giving you one-word answers or like not asking you questions back, bye. So the next one is definitely something I can relate to. So this girl said, me and my boyfriend have been together for over a year now, and I'm so scared that when we go to university, long distance will become so difficult and I'll miss him too much. It's stressing me out as we currently see each other basically every day, and we'll go from that to once a fortnight. How do you feel about this with Tom? Do you have any advice? This is honestly something I think about all the time, because in September, neither me or Tom are really sure what is going to happen. We've both got options, but we're not set on what's going to happen, and there is a chance we could both end up staying in Beverley, which is like where I live, but then there is also a chance that we could end up, I move to Leeds and Tom moving to Middlesbrough, which is like about an hour and a bit away from Leeds. So currently we see each other every single day, like literally every day, and that is not, or that's not like through choice. We see each other in school every day, but because we see each other, we're just become really normalized to seeing each other every single day. I can't really offer advice on this because I'm like thinking the same thing and suffering the same like issue, but it's definitely something that I feel like a lot of people take into account when they get in a relationship in sixth form. Like, I know when my friends and my friendship group and people in my year started like getting boyfriends, getting girlfriends in year 12, a lot of people were like, oh, do you think you'll stay together for university? And at the time that's not really a problem because you're just in year 12, you're only just starting out. But sixth form goes so fast and you start making the decisions in year 12 as to what you're going to do at the end of year 13, and it's definitely something that causes a lot of problems. Yeah, I don't know, I think the best thing you can do is just try and make it work. It's difficult because I can't offer advice, so you're probably better off watching somebody that is in a long distance relationship, but yeah, I feel you. I feel ya. So then I'm gonna look on Twitter. Some people tweeted me on using the hashtag AskMolly, and the first one that I've seen here is, what do you think of somebody who is 18 and does not have a boyfriend? I've never had one, but I don't really want one either. There's a helicopter. Bye. Okay, it's gone, I'm back. If you don't want a boyfriend, then that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with being 18 and not being in a relationship. I think most people probably are like that rather than are in a relationship. I think it's so easy to compare yourself to people you know that have like a boyfriend or whatever, because you feel really like singled out because you don't have one. But if you look at the majority, you're actually probably part of the majority, and if you don't want one, then hun, just keep doing you. Keep doing you. I just used the word hun, I hate the word hun. Let's pretend that never happened. Okay, so then a question I got asked on Twitter again was, what do I do when I get mixed signals but I get no answers, and when I ask questions, boys are very confusing? This is something I stan. Boys complain that they don't understand girls, right? Have you met boys? Like, boys are so difficult to read because they're so like either unaware of the fact that they are like being misleading, or just so like out of touch with like how they feel and all of that like deep stuff that they're so difficult to read. Now, before being with Tom, this was definitely like my whole life, because there are so many people that you're like, well, I think they like me, I'm not really sure, like, do they like me, do I like them, like what is happening here? it gets to a point where you're like, look, straight up, what's happening here, because I need to know. And I think it's at that point where if you don't get a straight up answer, it's time to just be like, okay, clearly this isn't a thing, like let's just be friends, or let's stop talking, or like whatever, because otherwise it just like gets confusing, messes with your head, and then you don't really know where you're at, and neither of you are winning, like you're both losing. So talk to the person directly, and if they still don't give you an answer, I think that that is your answer. Like, yeah. Okay, so another question I got asked on Twitter was, how do you balance social time with your friend and your boyfriend? Okay, this is definitely something that I think has been really obvious throughout year 12 and year 13, trying to get the balance right between like seeing Tom and seeing my friends, doing YouTube, doing schoolwork, doing driving lessons last year is a challenge. Every single week is different, and there are some weeks where I have so much more time than other weeks. Obviously right now, for example, is a very stressful time. Exam season is like now, and it does not make it easy, but I think you just have to work it out as you go along. For example, at the beginning of year 12, a lot of my friends getting into new relationships, like getting new boyfriends, going on dates, like growing up a little bit as well, because I think there is a big gap between high school and sixth form, and I think it's just getting the balance right, and people get it wrong, and that's like fine, but it's just like knowing when to take a step back and be like, look, I'm sorry I haven't put as much effort in with you guys recently, I didn't really realise. It is definitely difficult, but I think people do work it out, it just takes a lot of time. If you are the friend watching that happen and you're unhappy that your friend that's got into a relationship isn't spending as much time with you anymore, I think that a lot of the time you just need to cut them a little bit of slack until they realise that actually you were their friend first and you will be their friend after, so they will come back to you and they will realise that they're in the wrong, but you've got to have a little bit of time for adjustment, and that's definitely what sixth form has been all about, to be honest, experimenting with where that line is. This is an interesting one. Somebody on Twitter said, what would you do if your friend's boyfriend tried it on with you? This is not something that has ever happened to me. I've always known all of my friends' boyfriends, and they have usually been my friend as well. For example, in my friendship group at the moment, most of my friends' boyfriends are my friends, so I can't talk from experience, but I think you would just have to be like, look, you're going out with my friend, you've overstepped the boundary, please don't do that again, I will tell said person. And to be honest, if you think they've already crossed that line, you need to tell your friend, because like they're not being a good boyfriend, and you wouldn't be being a good friend if you didn't do that. So I definitely think that that is a little bit of a dodgy one, and something that could end up in a very messy situation if you don't sort it out as soon as it happens. If you like the guy as well, then you really need to sort it out between the two of you and tell the other person involved like as soon as, really, because otherwise it just gets so messy and more people end up being upset than need to be, usually. Okay, so this is the question that I'm going to end on. I feel like I've answered most of them. The ones I haven't answered were either very similar or I just haven't had a chance to read them. But this one was, how do you tell your parents that you've got a boyfriend? I'm in year 10, by the way. So I think my first boyfriend that I had, I was in year 9, and I don't really remember ever specifically telling my mum or dad about any of my boyfriends, to be honest. I'll say this like I've been out with loads of people, but I think I've had like 4 boyfriends. If you could even count 4, like kind of 2, kind of 4, I don't really know. Like, whatever. I think I was in year 9 and I came home and I remember being like, oh, I just went out with this boy, I think he's my boyfriend now. Like, I said it as if I really didn't know, to see how their reaction would be. I was like, oh, I think so, I don't know, hee, like react before I say that it's true. And I think, I can't really remember, this was like 5 or 6 years ago now, which is actually really scary. I think they were really chill. I think obviously then when I was a little bit older, that they were more like, okay, like can we meet him, like I want to know him before like you spend loads of time with him and stuff like that. And I think it's definitely, you just have to kind of bite the bullet. It's one of those awkward sentences and awkward like conversation starters, but you just have to like bite the bullet. And more often than not, your parents are going to be really supportive, and if they're not, like, then you need to work on that problem. Like, think about why they're not being supportive. It is difficult, but you just have to work out what is like best for you in that situation, and like why your family's opinion of this person might be really different. But I'm sure they would be really supportive and they'd probably be really chill about it. That is going to be the last question. Thank you so much to everybody that sent them to me. I know there were a lot, and a lot of them were quite similar to the ones I've read out, but if you have any others that you do want to ask me, my DMs on Instagram, I read them all the time, and the comments of this video would be really helpful. You guys could leave advice for other people watching this. If you've got a question, ask it, and then other people can answer and help you guys out. Let's get a bit of a chat, like girl talk for boys going on in the comments. But yeah, that is it. I will be back on Thursday. I'm not too sure if I'll be uploading a drive with me just because I have exams this week, but I will be uploading a video on Thursday. It might be my media coursework because I can just like upload that and go if I need to. So yeah, I will see you all then. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new around here. Give the video a huge thumbs up if you think I helped, and I will be back on Thursday. Bye!